Hi, my name is Leah Day, and I don't know about you, but I am thoroughly enjoying this 365 Days of Free Motion Quilting Filler Designs project. And I'm definitely starting to amass quite a lot of designs. We've just recently hit day 100, and there's still a lot of designs to go. But today I really wanted to share with you what I'm doing with these little squares and how you can follow along with the blog and make squares of your own. So that way, whenever you're in the quilting design process, you can have those squares to pin up to your quilt top and decide what fillers you want to use where, or which designs you want to use over your whole quilt top. So here's real basically what I'm doing with my designs. After I finish my designs, I put them into a notebook. And this right here is holding 60 designs. And so I just slip the 4-inch squares into these sheet protectors. They're little plastic kind of envelopes that have an open top, and each one fits 4 4-inch squares. And this is a really wonderful way of kind of keeping them all together in a really nice consolidated way and keeping it nice and compact, but I can still get in here and get any of the designs that I want and take them out. And that's what I really like about it. I didn't want to kind of fit them together into a quilt top or anything like that, simply because I really like to have the mobility of the little squares. I like to be able to use them in my design process. I like to be able to pin them to certain areas of the quilt top. But I didn't want them all over the place getting lost in my quilting space. So this is really the best way I've found of keeping them organized. So real basically, if you wanted to follow along with the blog, here's how to do it. You want to cut yourself some 6-inch squares, just 6 inches, and I typically am now doing black fabric for the back and a darker colored fabric for the top. I have found in the last 100 days that dark fabric with lighter thread tends to look better. So I only use white thread whenever I am quilting these samples. And I just generally found that that's my personal opinion, but I found that the lighter fabrics with darker threads seem to show more mistakes. And we'd like to keep those mistakes hidden, right? So I think darker fabric with lighter thread is a better way to go. Also, real quick tip, always use the same weight and type of thread in the top and the bobbin at all times. So if I'm using isocord white thread in the top, I'm using isocord white thread in the bobbin. That's always true for all quilting. If you start mixing up weights or types or use a cheaper thread in the bobbin, you're going to run into tension problems. So I really advise against that. So once you have your square, you also want to cut a square of batting. And generally I use something pretty thin, but most of these I've just done with some scrap batting I've had around the house, which is typically Quilter's Dream Cotton or Quilter's Dream Poly. So 6-inch squares. Then you take a 4-inch square marking ruler and just set that down. And 4-inch square marking rulers are going to be available in the Daystyle Designs quilt shop from now on. So that way you can very easily join in with the blog and try this if you don't have a square already. Then I take a Soline marking pencil and mark the outside surrounding area of that square. So you have a 4-inch square marked on your 6-inch piece of fabric. So I'm sure you're wondering, why didn't we cut our square out at 4.5 inches or something smaller? Why are we wasting all this fabric around the square? Well, the reason is we might only be quilting 4 inches, but we need that extra inch of space to hold on to the piece. We really need that for mobility, for moving the little quilt around. If you get too small with this, the outside perimeter of your little square is going to start looking really garbled, and your stitch technique is just not going to be very easy in those areas when you're right next to the edge. So definitely give yourself more than enough space to hold on to and grip this little square, because otherwise you're just going to be frustrating yourself, and there's no point in that. Once you get your square stitched, and I typically, you've seen in the videos, I go around the square first, then I fill in the center. Once I get the whole square filled in, I hide my threads, always, of course, and then cut out around it, leaving about 1/8 of an inch around the stitching of the square, and then it fits just perfectly into this notebook. So that's really basically what I do with my squares, and I will share more on the quilting design process. I'm about to start a new show quilt and I will definitely post some videos as I'm working on that to show you how these squares really come in handy looking at the quilt and deciding what fillers need to go where. So until next time, let's go quilt and let's go practice some of these designs.